Welcome back. Welcome back. Rod Powell here to your number one source for information, inspiration, and education on the most just phenomenal career opportunity, in business today. That's a career in the insurance industry. Of course, once again, we're back with the podcast edition. Have a very, very, very special guest because we are going outside of the U.S. borders once again and really, exposing aspects of the business, not just inside of the country, but really around the world. And the colleague I'm speaking with tonight, I'm very excited about. She is extremely active, on LinkedIn. So you may have already seen her in other areas. She is an insurance advisor, very, very just well-versed in what she does. And she has a cool moniker, which is the Insurance Mom. And she's going to share a little bit about that as well. Also about, what she does and the aspects of her business and her journey and story around the way, because she is multi-layered and multi-talented, has so many different things going on, and it's pretty phenomenal, especially considering the amount of success she's had in the business as well. So I want to welcome to the You Should Get a License podcast, Nicole Chaitan-Kissoon. Nicole, how are you doing? I'm
good, Rod. Thanks. That's a big introduction.
Hey, look, thank you. I'm excited to have this conversation. I'll go back to, how I was originally introduced to you. You're very active on LinkedIn, which is, professional social media platform. Mm-hmm. And you sent a message asking about the US market, and you sent a message that was a video. And that's the first time I'd ever seen that in LinkedIn. I was like blown away. I was like, yo, this is crazy. So I was like, man, this is somebody who I have to have a conversation with. And then, I follow your page and have seen, the activity and how you're always giving notes and nuggets and all these things of value, to consumers, and other professionals as well. So I want to just, kind of start off, on our platform. We like to expose, the different aspects of the business. And you have two unique pieces, in what you do professionally, but also how business works, in Trinidad where you are. So can you just share a little bit about, what you do, what your area of specialty is, and what you, help people with on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my specific wheelhouse really is personal risk management, because what I mainly do is personal insurance, life insurance, income protection. So that's illness, disability. We also do business insurance and general insurance as well for property. But what I really like and stick to is the personal insurance. So it's working with professionals, with families, with individual people, so that what I do for them, make sure that the plans that they have don't get derailed when the unexpected comes up.
Absolutely. So basically you're putting, plans in place, life insurance, final expense protection, just to make sure that, their family and the subsequent generations are going to be taken care of and not crippled by financial hardship that can be caused by death, really.
Yeah. What I do is ensuring progress from one generation to another. That's how you build your generational wealth.
That's it. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, aspect with generational wealth, because, that's a part of the business that people don't think about when they think about insurance. They think about insurance as, all right, I'm going to get this death benefit. And, I don't know if you hear this, but I know in the States, we hear sometimes, oh, well, I don't want to leave anybody else rich. My question is, well, one, why wouldn't you? But
wouldn't you have liked it if your great grand someone had left you rich? Of course you would have.
That's right. Absolutely. So, dealing with that, and you mentioned, other personal lines as well. So you also do not only the life insurance, final expense, but also some property and casualty if necessary.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Got you. Perfect. And I know you have you have some other designations as well. So for any of the things that you do right now, one, can you just speak to the designations that you have, but also if there's any special designations that you need outside of just being licensed to do what you do on a day-to-day?
Well, actually things in Trinidad kind of just got a little more highly regulated than they used to be. So at the beginning of last year, the Insurance Act that governs the activities of insurance agents and brokers changed. So now we don't just have to be licensed by the government the way you guys have to have a license in whichever state that you're operating. But really, if we're going to call ourselves financial advisors, not insurance salesmen outright, then we need to have another professional designation to justify that. So that's why I choose not to call myself an advisor until I completed my FSCP designation from the American College.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. So, and it's I think it's a little bit similar here. So I just want to ask on something. So in Trinidad, one thing that I always had a question about is it Trinidad and Tobago, or is it Trinidad Tobago? Like, how do we?
No, it's Trinidad and Tobago. Right? Tobago is the smaller of the islands, so people have a bad habit of saying just Trinidad, but it's Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinidad and we want to make sure Tobago is included. You know.
Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't have that bad habit though, by the way.
Yeah. So there, the licensure, it encompasses the entire country. Do you have to have it for each area that you're in, or is just one license?
What you really have to be able to do everything that I do is you have to have 2 licenses, because we're licensed separately for the first one is term long term. So that's really your life insurance, being able to sell critical illness insurance, annuities, all those investments and retirement products. That's your long-term insurance license. And then you have to have a separate license, your general license, for any kind of property or workman's comp, public liability, all of that.
Got you. Now we have the life and health here, right? That you would get through your state or whatever states you want to write business in. And then you have the property and casualty that you would get through those states as well. But we have to get the licensure for each state that we want to do business in. It sounds like if you get a license in Trinidad and Tobago, then you can operate in the entire area.
Trinidad and both islands. To be fair, though, I mean, the Trinidad is really where most of the business is. Tobago is a significantly smaller island. So, and most of us, like, even though we have Zoom and everything with the company I work for, thankfully, has gone online and digital with COVID. If you want to see a client, you still have to drive however long it's going to take you to get on a plane, which for me is about an hour and a half, and then jump on that plane to go talk to a client face to face in Tobago. So most people just operate within whichever island they live.
Shoot, people here, they talk about just driving, across town to go see a client. You're talking about getting on a plane to potentially go somewhere.
Yeah. So no, we really don't.
So thank goodness for Zoom, though. It definitely has opened up opportunities, for agents and for our clients as well. So I want to take a minute and go back, and then I want to go through the journey of your career. But I want to go all the way back to, let's say, a 8-9-year-old Nicole. What did you dream of being when you grew up?
Oh, I don't think I dreamt of being anything yet when I was that young. I think I got it in my head probably when I started high school, which for us here was probably around 12, 13 or so, that I didn't really want to work for someone else permanently. But strangely enough, I ended up doing it for a while. So.
Hey, we all have our journey, but I think that it's interesting that, even as a teenager, you say, hey, I want to work independently, that entrepreneur, bug bit you kind of early.
Yeah, it was just realizing that I didn't want to have someone else telling me how and when to work and what to do. I wanted more control over what I did with my time and what I pursued. So I think that was it.
Now your background, prior to coming into the industry, you dealt in like economic policy. You also did some tutoring. So take me from, I guess, high school through college and how you actually found your way into the insurance industry.
Okay. Well, high school, I didn't work anywhere. High school, and it was a business track from the very beginning. I suck at numbers. I barely passed every statistics course I've ever taken in life.
You have a degree in economics, don't you? So.
Yeah. That's why if you look at the courses, you realize there was always a lean towards the development policy and type research, not modeling. So I was always interested in the development aspect of economics, and for the reason that I thought that's how you improve people's lives. Because the development policy is how you develop a country, and that means the standard of living rises. So that's always interested me. So I worked part-time. I did my first degree in Toronto, so I worked all through doing that. Your typical part-time student's jobs. The one that I think maybe helped me, and I didn't realize it until later on, was I had a job in a photo studio where I was essentially a telemarketer. I was booking appointments for people to come in.
Nice.
So that got me on the phone from the beginning, learning how to speak on the phone and to not take no for an answer immediately. So that was one skill that came up there. But when I finished that first degree, my undergraduate degree, I came home and I had gone on scholarship from the government, but that comes with strings here, at least. So when I came back, it meant that I had to work for the government for a certain number of years in return for the scholarship funding.
Got you.
Right. So I worked in what is the Central Economic Planning Ministry. And I was supposedly doing exactly what I had trained to do, researching and writing and supporting economic policy. And it sucked. It really sucked. I sat behind a desk and I wrote words and slogans and stuff for development plans that got published in lovely glossy documents that sat on the shelf and gathered dust. That affected nobody. And I didn't interact with anybody or see anything outside of the office. So that was awful. But I stayed long enough because it's, I don't know if you guys have that impression in the States, but here, if you have a government job, a generation ago, the idea was, well, you're good, you're set, you have a government job. So, and the thing people say here is that when you have a government job, they can't fire you. Even if they want to, they can't. So I stayed for 7 years and did that. But the thing is, I had a lot going on while that was happening. While that was happening, I got married a year into that job. I finished my master's and I had 2 kids.
Wonderful.
And so it worked. But then after my second son was born, it came to a point where the commute to work for that was like an hour and a half each way.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the work didn't give anything in return for that commute or for the time away from my family. And I just had a breaking point where I resigned, and it was kind of dramatic, I think, when I look back at it now, how I did it. I just put in.
How'd you do it? Hold on. How'd you do it? Let's.
Well, so I had this issue where my immediate supervisor changed. And it changed from a woman who had a child later on in life and understood the work-life balance and supported it. Didn't really care what time I came in to work or if I had to work from home or anything. As long as the work was done, she was good.
Right.
My immediate supervisor changed to someone who was like a butt in chair for 8 hours a day type of person from 8 to 4. And there wasn't so much flexibility. And when I had to miss the time, even if they knew I was working from home, they still wanted me to apply for leave as if I hadn't worked. And so it came to a confrontation about that. And the supervisor said, well, you have to admit, I've been pretty lenient with you. And I just looked at them in the face and I said, honestly, no, you haven't. And I applied to HR that day for all the leave I had left. And I took it as emergency personal leave, which here cannot be refused. And halfway through that, I went and gave my resignation letter. I walked with a suitcase, packed up my desk and left and never went back.
Wow. It's interesting. It's interesting when you hear those kinds of stories because now in the environment that we live in, when everyone is working remote.
Exactly. You see this coming. If you had seen this from ahead of time, I mean.
It's like in life, still functions, like business is still happening, right? It makes you think about, what's really necessary, as far as, running an organization and what's just, minutia, when it's all said and done.